Welcome to Transformative Principle, where you learn how to be a transformative principal by listening to amazing leaders tell their stories. I'm your host, Jethro Jones. You can follow me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. And please like the Facebook page for this podcast, facebook.com/Transformative Principle. Transformative Principle, episode 82 with David Long. This is the second part of my interview with David Long, and in this episode, we are going to talk about some of the things that you can do to help make sure that you're recognizing your employees. And what we want to do is find a way to help people be engaged in what it is that they're doing, and look at some of the metrics that he uses, and then actually talk to kids about how they feel their teachers are doing, and use those metrics to help determine whether or not what teacher should get the Employee of the Month award. And he really emphasizes using the recognition chart to make sure that you're checking in on your teachers. And he's got a special deal if you buy his book that he'll tell you at the end. And I listened to him on another podcast. I contacted him like he said to, and it's pretty cool. He's an amazing guy and obviously very successful, and I hope that he helps you be a better leader for your employees.
This popped in my head, and I don't know if it'd work for your but I believe it would, quite frankly. I shouldn't have said I don't know that it would work. I believe it would. I believe if you actually had what we do occasionally. There's employee engagement surveys, but you do student engagement surveys where you ask students, and your kids are old enough, 6th, 7th, and 8th, you said, right? Okay. Your kids are old enough, and you can have, and it'd be simplistic questions, but how well do you feel the teacher teaches blah, blah, blah? Or how well do you feel the teacher encourages you, blah, blah, blah? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you basically rank these things. And that, my friend, would be a very easy way. And that would keep your teachers on their toes.
Yeah.
You understand?
It sure would. So
you would know quicker that you had an issue with a teacher.
So one of the issues that people in education raise is that competition like this shuts people down, makes them not want to do.
I always love hearing that because it's poppycock. The reason that people don't want to be compared to others is because they're the weakest people. Mm-hmm. The most successful people love it, eat it up. Mm-hmm. But the weakest people don't want to be compared to other people. Oh, you're cheapening what it is we're doing. Really? If you interview and assess what the kids believe they're getting from the teacher and how their scores are, which that's another metric at the end of the year compared to the other teachers, it's easy to determine who your teacher of the year is. When you have that many months of metrics and that many results from various things that you're keeping up with. You don't get at the end of the year, I can't believe you recognize Tom Jones because, he was so weak in all these other areas. Well, as the year goes along, everyone knows why Tom has won at the end of the year.
Yeah. So what are some of the metrics that you use for your consultant positions?
Let's look at that. First of all, it's dollar per ticket. That's one thing. That's not the first thing I should say. How much they do in renewal sales of their clients every month. Mm-hmm. In other words, they're assigned roughly, each consultant is assigned between around 800 clients. You say, well, that's a lot. Well, really, you're not talking with each of them every month. A lot of people say, Dave, I'm busy. I don't have time. Can you please, just send me emails? Well, we're going to send you emails, but we're also going to touch base with you every month or so to make sure everything's okay.
Right.
I just need to send me an email to remind me I need to turn in my monthly winners. Yeah, that's great. But we want to add value, Jethro, so we don't want to just give you your nameplates for your winners plaques. There's more to it than that. We want to show you ways that we've just discovered of ways that you can improve your relationships with your employees. Why would you not want to do that? That kind of thing. In your case, relationship with your teachers and the students, I might add. So this is something that when people put it in place, it magnifies the success. Let me give you a statistic. And this is from like lean production, lean manufacturing, Toyota production system for, I don't know if you're familiar with Kaizen, which is a continuous improvement, Japanese word for continuous improvement. Now, what you want to do basically is you want to, anything that you are monitoring automatically, and people know it, it automatically is improved by 10% by you doing nothing but letting them know you're paying attention to that. That's powerful.
Yeah.
10%. So if you have a certain amount of kids dropping out of school, let's say hopefully at that age they can't really drop out, but if they get to high school and you have 2,000 kids in a high school, which is not uncommon in some places, and you lose 10%, or even if it's 100 kids and you lose 10% of them, my goodness, that's a tragedy.
It is. Can I tell you a quick cool story about that?
Absolutely, of course.
So I was at an elementary school down in Utah before I was up here. I was an assistant principal, and we were having this problem with attendance. We only had about 85% of our kids come to school, and that's not good. It's
terrible.
A lot of kids not showing up. Absolutely. And so we tried doing these reward programs. We tried doing these different things, and nothing was really working because the kids who didn't want to be there just didn't want to be there, period. And so what I started doing is I started doing this this announcement every day, announcing what our percentage of attendance was. Right. And this was an elementary school, so kindergarten through third grade, they didn't really get it. They didn't really know what those percentages meant.
Right.
But they knew that I was talking about kids coming to school that day. And so almost immediately, our attendance jumped from 85% up to about 95%. And that was all that we had to do. And so then every once in a while, I'd go into a classroom, make the announcement from the classroom that had 100% attendance. And that was a big deal. And all I did was say, we're paying attention to this, just like you said, and paying attention to it. And all of a sudden, all these kids started coming to school. And it was just amazing to see that happen.
That's great. That's a perfect example. Let me give you another perfect example. I believe it was Ford Motor Company. They had 3 shifts of people building cars. And what they did, one manager decided that he would go up and write a number on the board next to the time card, on time clock. And he wrote the number. And what that number was, everybody's going, what's that number? That's how many cars were built by the 3rd shift. Oh, well, we're better than they are. So before it was done, there was a 20-some% increase in the amount of cars that were built in a given shift.
Yeah.
How much money does that matter? It matters a lot. That's a massive amount.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. So what are some of the other metrics you use for your consultants?
Okay. Actually, time on the phone. We want them talking to our clients. How many calls they answer. One of the things that I learned in my old AT&T days, that was one of the jobs I had. I was quite successful at. I hated it, but I was successful at it. I don't like, I was meant to be an entrepreneur, so I get frustrated when there's a bunch of stupid rules and nobody can tell you why they're there.
Yeah.
So, that wasn't a good example for me. But I forgot what I was going to say. AT&T days. Oh, yeah, that's right. Time on the phone. Answering the phone when people call by the 3rd ring. If the 4th ring is heard, I immediately go into irritated mode. I don't answer the phones anymore. Actually, hardly am ever in my office anymore, quite frankly. Yeah. Except my book club. If you read my book, you learned about that. And of course, my manager's meetings. But I go around and talk to my people. So, but that's it. I'm only in the office roughly about 7 hours a week. But that was one of the things I learned from AT&T is answer the phone, because once you get to that 4th and 5th and 6th ring, people start to have a momentary amount of doubt in their mind. Is Jethro still in business?
Right.
So you don't want them ever thinking that. So answer the phone by the 3rd call. So we rate them on that. How many calls did you answer, Jethro, compared to other people? We don't want people thinking, well, somebody else will get it. not a world-class company. World-class company says, let me handle that for you. And that's what we want all our people thinking. So we reward that as well. Let's see what else on the top of my head.
So how do you track that?
How do we track it?
Yeah.
We have a very sophisticated phone system, database, and CRM. Okay. It keeps it for us. When you clock in the morning for people who are hourly, it tells us how much time you're there, and then the phone system tells us how much time you're on the phone. It's pretty simplistic once it's set up.
Cool. And because it matters, you bought a system that would track that, right?
Right. And we just came. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we've set it up over the years. Once again, this is our 26th year. Right. But now we've added the various things that we roll out something new every year. Last year, we rolled out color logos on the plaques. Mm-hmm. And we gave people, as a matter of fact, the vast majority of our clients upgraded to color. Our great day, it was over 90%. And it's actually higher than that. It's closer to almost to 100% now. Everybody. And I tell people, I said, Jethro, at home, do you watch a color TV or black and white? Right?
Color.
Right. Who's watching black and white today? So why would you not want your company logo in color? I bought 5 $65,000 color printers to be able to do that for our clients. And every new sale that came, when they get a sample plaque of what it is we're going to do, they have color logo on there anyway. So that's what they see. But we upgraded. That was one of the things we do. We ranked our RCs, recognition consultants, on how effective they were at upgrading our clients to color. Mm-hmm. So now that that's done, now we've come up with a new thing that we wanted to once you have the once a month employee recognition presentation, we make it. If you want me to talk about that later, I can. But when you do that, and you only do that one day a month, right? Mm-hmm. You're recognizing all the people. So you got this gap of roughly 30 days almost, or 29 or 30 days in between there that you don't really have a presentation per se that everybody knows what's going on. So what we did was, and we actually got this idea from another company, because we're always paying attention what other people do as well, because we want to be the best of everything to our clients. That's the goal. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that they're most successful of any company that does what we do. So we learned about, this greeting cards. I don't know if you've ever heard of send-out cards, but we use those as well. But that's sendoutcards.com. You should check that out. It's pretty good about greeting cards and reminders and all that. But what we do primarily is we have developed what we call spot-on cards. And it has roughly several hundred recognition opportunities. There's shout-out pads where if I saw a teacher doing something, I would give them give them a little coupon there. And then I keep the stub. And then when we get together, we talk about in your case, a teacher's meeting, I recognize them for whatever it was they did. Mm-hmm. Like I saw you talking with a troubled child and how much better that child's doing. And I just wanted to say, whatever you said, Jethro, to that child is doing phenomenally well. Please share with everyone the situation and what you said and how that's going now. You let those people shine. It's not the Jethro show. Right. It's your people. So you make sure that you make it's like GE, Jack Welch, former CEO of GE. He said that when you are an individual within a company, it's all about you. But when you become a leader, it's all about your people. And the only way you're going to be successful is for your people to be successful. And man, that just is so proven in my life, since we've been doing book club meetings, and you read about that. But since we've been doing that, oh my goodness, it has bonded us together as a team like nothing I've ever seen. And I've gotten so many testimonials since my book's been out. I've got telephone calls where my RCs will send me and say, Dave, you got to listen to this. This HR manager was just talking about, they started their own book club in their company and how they're getting texts and calls from their employees and saying, wow, this is awesome. Because the book clubs, my friend, are to work on making you better as a person, not job skills for what you do. In other words, I'll use a prime example. We actually read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And at the time, Jethro, we had 30-some employees. When we got to the end of that book, I had 4 of my employees that immediately said to me within that next following week, Dave, or actually in the course of reading the book, actually one or two of them did, but they said, Dave, that book saved my marriage. I had one of my young ladies who, her and her husband were completely separated from each other, living in different places. And she came to me, Jethro, and she said, Dave, that book showed me that I am the problem, not my husband. Wow. And Jethro, they're back together today.
Yeah.
Now, can you put a price on that, my friend?
No, you can't, because what you're talking about, and what I loved about reading your book, is that it's not about just making these people work harder for you. Yeah. It's about really improving every aspect of your lives. And I think now would be a good time for you to take a step back and talk about the book club process and what that actually looks like, because you've alluded to it many times in powerful ways. And just talk about how you set that up and why you do that and why that's so important.
Well, I've always been, my father taught me to be a reader when I was younger. He handed me Dale Carnegie's book when I was 14 years old, and I read it. And his thing to me was, which is like any kid would be interested, he said, well, son, if you want to be more popular in school, which I already was, I was an athlete, so I was already popular in school. But he said, if you want to be more popular in school, have more friends, read this book. Now, who doesn't want to do that? Right. So I read it, and it really did. It really transformed my thinking on things. And it's a huge portion of why I've been successful in my life, because I realized that is the key, is to make other people feel important and show them that they are significant to you. So what I did was, because I've been a reader, I've read a book by Dr. Tony Zeiss, by the way, who is the president of Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, Jethro, that is the largest community college network in America. Huh. So Tony is a very sharp individual. He's a friend and mentor of mine now. And I wanted to meet him. And when I was writing my own book, I asked to come speak to him. So we became friends. So he's a great guy. And anyway, so I read his book called The 12 Essential Rules for Becoming Indispensable, I believe it was. And I read it, and I was like, holy cow. I only had about 11 employees at the time. So I said, I'm going to buy copies of this book, and we're going to read this with my employees. So I called a meeting, and I said, guys, here is a copy of a book I want us all to read together. I said, I want you to take it. I want you to read chapter 1 on attitude, and I want you to come back here. Next week, I'm going to buy pizza, and we're going to sit around on our lunch hour, and we're going to talk about this first chapter. And, of course, they all looked at me like I'd lost my mind, and they didn't want to do it. And actually, I had a couple of my salespeople, of all people, come up to me afterwards and say, after the meeting, they said, David, we're not real comfortable with this. We don't want to read. I said, you're not reading in front of other people. You're just telling what you got out of the chapter. I said, it's not an option. It's mandatory. So I said, you got your copy of the book. Here's a highlighter. Here's a notebook. Come back in here next Wednesday or whenever the day was. I think it was Wednesday, but come back in here and we're going to talk about chapter 1 on attitude. So when we came in, Jethro, nobody said anything. And I started to tell them where my attitude had affected me in my life. And one by one, over the next 2 or 3 weeks, everybody started chiming in. And man, that bonded people like nothing had ever been done before. You had people from production going to lunch with salespeople. That never happened before. They had a totally different mindset. People from support going to lunch with salespeople. And see, when they're going off together, they tend to talk and say, hey, when you guys do this, it really hurts us. It causes a problem for us. How can we work this out? So they started to talk and made things better between them, ironed out problems, because sometimes it was an adversarial situation. Right. It's us against them. And you don't want that in a company if you're going to be successful. You can't have that. No. So that became something that they, it melted away. It bonded us as a group. I've had people just break down and start crying in book club of certain things that a chapter or a video that we watched reminded them of their past and their life, or maybe their mother or father or a sibling or friend or something. So we do that once a week, and we've been doing it now for over a decade. And my goodness, when people, if I have to fire somebody, which is very rare, the number one thing that they tell me when I see them, or they write back to me later and they haven't found another company anywhere close to how we are, they want to come back, and I miss book club. I miss book club. And that's powerful.
That is powerful.
It's made me millions, by the way. If you want to put a monetary number, it's made me and my people millions.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So you're talking about books that are not just about your particular industry, right? I just want to make sure that
No, it's nothing about my industry at all. It's not sales training. It's personal development, if you will. It's making you more effective. Right now, for example, Jethro, prime example of what I'm talking about. We are watching as a company. We split the company up. Half the people, 10 o'clock on Wednesday. The other half, 10 o'clock on Thursday. We are doing Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University.
Awesome.
And we're going through that. And by the way, you are a principal. Kids never learn this stuff in school, and they need to. It's life training. Mm-hmm. You can teach them all the things you want to, but if you don't teach them, don't get in debt, don't get credit cards, they're going to come your way with all these, solicitations. Don't do it. You become a slave. Here's why you need to save money, so when you go to school, you don't get out of school with $50,000 worth of debt or more. You teach them about using money wisely, how credit is so important that you don't flippantly say, I'm not going to pay my bills this month. Why does it matter? Well, you're going to pay more for your insurance because you have bad credit. You're going to pay higher interest rates because you have past bad credit when you go to buy a house or a car. You're educating these people. Oh, by the way, when I educate my employees on financial matters and they're better at managing their money, my employees are all of a sudden not getting calls from creditors.
Right.
And I don't know about you, Jethro, but if you're at work, and by the way, when I lost everything, I had people calling me. I know what it feels like. I'm not bragging. I'm just stating fact. I didn't like it. People called my wife. This is back pre-cell phone days. Calling the house when I was at work and telling them, well, hey, we haven't been paid yet. And then she gave my number at the office. They were calling me at the office. When those people call you, it changes your mindset, my friend.
Yeah.
You're no longer a very effective employee or teacher in your case.
Right.
So when you invest in your people and making them better, that's why they wanted to be in book club, because it was all about them, not about me, not about making them more money at the company, though it does. I wanted my people to have better relationships with their family. I wanted them to have better relationships with their employees. I wanted them to be able to pay their bills. I wanted them to be the best they could be. And as a result, they are immensely, immensely loyal to me.
Yeah. So I know we're coming close to our time limit, and I just want to ask you one more question. We've talked about a lot of stuff here today. What is the one thing that someone should start doing today as a principal to start recognizing their teachers and staff at their school? Where should they start with everything we've talked about?
Well, quite frankly, I'm going to send you that chart. And okay. I want you, if you incorporate that, it's a reminder. And once again, when people know that you're checking things, there's an automatic 10% improvement. If you give this to your teachers and explain to them why it matters and how it will impact their kids paying more attention to the teacher, because the child knows the teacher really does care about them. Mm-hmm. They've got buy-in. They're going to have better success as a teacher with each and every student, because there will be kids that fall through the cracks if you don't watch out what's going on, if you don't pay attention to these things. Remember, 10% improvement automatically just when people know that you're paying attention. I would definitely do that. And the number one thing I would do, and your teachers are probably not going to want to hear this, but you need to invest in your education. Just because you're in education and teaching other people doesn't make you better. You need to constantly read, and how can I be a better teacher? Mm-hmm. How can I be a better speaker? Invest in books and courses and things like that. There's so many resources online now on YouTube. How can I be a better teacher? How can I engage my students? How can I keep their attention in this electronic age when they're used to sticking their face in their phones and everything? You have to be better. You're competing against that, but you have to get better and stay ahead of it. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you, learn more from you and your company?
Okay. Well, they can reach me at David Long at top10manager.com. And our 800 number for our company, my employees, if anybody's interested in the recognition, is 1-800-489-0230. And anybody answers the phone can take care of you. My people are all cross-trained, not an issue. They'd be glad to help you and share some resources with you at no charge. We're all about doing that, so that's not a problem. But I will say this. If your people that are listening to this want to go buy my book, if they buy the hardback copy on Amazon of David Long, Built to Lead is my book. If they buy that and they send me an email, once again, at davidlong@top10manager.com, and that's the number 10, by the way, not TEN, davidlong@top10manager.com. They send me an email. In the subject line, it says, please send Kindle version. If they buy the hardback and do that, they send me that. I will send them the Kindle version, which sells for $10 on Amazon. I'll send that to them for free. Oh, and I'll also send them the copy of my workbook, which I've developed to help you get the maximum benefit from reading the book. And that sells on our book's website, top10manager.com, for $8. I'll send that to them for free because I especially want to send that to teachers because teachers, you're impacting lives every day.
Yep.
Or you're not. Right?
So true.
People are tolerating you every day if you're not impacting lives.
Yeah.
So you owe it to the kids to do the best job possible.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome, and I've learned a ton.
Awesome. Thank you, Jethro. It's my privilege.
As you have heard by now, I have joined the Edu Podcast Network, the podcasters network for educators by Mr. Nessie. And I'm pretty excited about doing this because I feel like I am part of a great group of other podcasters who really care about providing high quality content to educators to help them learn in a way that is comfortable and good for them. I hope that you will listen to the other great podcasts on there and that you will support the network by downloading and rating and reviewing all the shows that you listen to. And I appreciate your support in this show. You can follow me on Twitter at Jethro Jones and follow the podcast on Twitter at TRNFRM Principle. I'd like to highlight a podcast from the Edu Podcast Network today. This is the Educational Podcasting Today podcast by Jeff Bradbury, also known as @TeacherCast. In this podcast, you learn how to get started yourself with an educational podcast. And I've learned a ton from doing my own podcast. And if you're interested in starting, you can definitely watch this podcast and learn from it.